Hi, this is the SMG Blacklist podcast, our inaugural episode. This is featuring the Blacklist episode called The Good Samaritan, number 106. This is season 1, episode 11. I'm your host, Jack Wengroski, and with me is my co-host,
Melissa Maxey.
Great. Hey, we're going to talk a bunch about the show today. So if you haven't seen it yet, this is just going to be one giant spoiler alert.
Yes, we really like to do that. Talk about the spoilers, talk about all the good parts.
We have a recap from the last episode where Red has been kind of captured and tortured to see where he's at, where the leaks have been, what his involvement is with this CIA group. And we come back, he's lost one of his good people, and now he's on the loose. He's out hunting for the people that have come after him.
Yes, I thought that turned out really well with him starting out showing him going after people that had been a part of that.
You know, it's funny. I'm on the easy for me to say on the Baker Street podcast. You know, this reminded me a little of Sherlock Holmes after the Reichenbach fall, where Sherlock, we think he's died, but in truth, he has taken Moriarty with him. He's fallen to falls, but was able to kind of catch himself. He's alive. Everybody thinks he's still dead, and he goes after Moriarty's network. Well, that's really really what we have here.
He did. He was pretty precise with, the people he was going after. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting him to be so precise with each one, with the questions, trying to figure out. He was asking them about what currency they were given and contacted them to get a feel for who the person was that had gone after him. And each one was, I thought was pretty interesting. Each one was a little bit different. I mean, which one stood out to you the most?
Well, it's funny. I started making a list and figuring, just to remind me of a couple people. And it just went all the way from top to bottom. The very first thing that he does is the remaining member of the surveillance team. And we all thought that Red owned that surveillance team. I mean, to me, it felt like Red is the one surveilling Liz.
Everybody thought that. Everybody thought that he was the one across the street, but that wasn't the case.
Right. We still feel like he's the one that was feeding the boyfriend's passport and just making it seem like he was an undercover agent for someone else. All seems like Red again, but so it's not, and that kind of took me by surprise.
Well, it's an interesting thing about Liz's boyfriend. I mean, he keeps warning her about, he's, to watch out for him. So that's he said it several times in this, in this episode.
We've gotten to episode 13 and we've gotten a lot of hints, but no real indication that he's a threat yet. But they've got to get to it soon.
Yeah, I would think so. And what I thought was interesting in the episode is, she's getting interrogated because they think she's the mole, that Lizzie's the mole, and he decides he's going to leave town. He's going to, all of a sudden just disappear. That seemed a little strange.
The boyfriend going off to Lincoln. Yep. Yeah, I've got this job offer with everything that we've seen previously. Being in New York was explained. Having showed up at every one of these things was all explainable. I think we're going to have another episode in Lincoln, Nebraska where something or someone turns up missing.
Yeah, that's possible. I think that he's doing jobs. He's doing a job for someone and he's leaving town to do someone's dirty work. So
the next one, the EMT that takes out his chip.
What was it? What did she say? She had 4 minutes?
Something like four minutes where they were going to hurt her family. The doctor who injected him, similar threats, all paid in cash. So he's taking people out one by one and, he's mad. He's taking it out on... And I thought...
which was pretty comical, actually, because, he's doing a little torture session, and he douses the guy with gasoline and sticks a cigarette in his mouth. And he's like, can't stand the suspense, can't stand to wait. So finishes them off. So I thought that was pretty good.
It was just like, you know what? I'm not even going to fool around, wait until it could be an hour till that cigar does anything. And
I wanted to wait. I'm like, really? I'm like, that would have been pretty cool, actually. So
And I'm kind of hoping that it was some sort of imported gasoline that he brought in the container, because I don't think anybody expects to be doused on fire by pouring vodka on their head.
yeah, no.
But yeah, it was still pretty cool. But I was surprised that he took it out on the low level players. Like that EMT, I mean, he knows how that works. You get somebody to do the dirty work, they don't know what's going on. These people wouldn't have ever been a threat. I guess it was just, it felt personal and he was just taking some payback.
Yeah. And he did take a little bit of time to talk to Lizzie while she was working on her case,
Of
while
course,
he was in the middle of assassinating everyone that had been in contact with him and taken him. Takes the time to. It's going to be interesting to find out, because he's protecting her, what exactly the relationship is. I mean, it seems like at least through this episode, there were a couple of instances where he's like, yes, I'm going to protect your family, but then he eliminates the person. So,
well, yeah, I mean, he's sensitive about that stuff. You got to pay your debts, but I truly believe that, that family will find interesting little scholarships or whatever. And that's kind of been his MO. I've got to kill you, but it's nothing personal.
yeah,
And
it's just my job.
yeah, the kids will get an inheritance from their uncle. They won't know what's going on, but I've got to take care of business.
Right.
Taking care of business, the Good Samaritan is who brings Red back out of hiding. It's funny. I thought we really had our fill of kind of the torture theme in the last two episodes. I was kind of surprised.
Oh, yeah, that they went with the Good Samaritan being a torturer, too.
Yeah, it just seemed a whole lot of the same.
Well, it's interesting that it's called the Good Samaritan, Can we apply that to Red being a Good Samaritan? I mean, I don't know. Is there a
I,
correlation between the Good Samaritan and Red?
well, the reason that, if you haven't, well, of course, if you haven't seen it, you shouldn't be listening to us. But
Yeah.
the reason that they called it the Good Samaritan was that at the very end of his session, he leaves them just alive enough to go to the hospital but still, they're so far gone. I don't think anybody actually survived. However, he leaves them alive when he leaves. And so
Yes.
that's why they called him the Good Samaritan. But it's funny that, Red kind of
Is the
feels like
opposite of that.
yeah, I mean, he always feels like he's on the higher moral ground,
Yeah.
but he's not.
Right.
So this guy's got, it starts out with the punch and the phenobarbital. I thought it was some sort of roofie incident, and of course,
That's what I thought, too.
yeah, just some plain abduction.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I wasn't expecting the Norman Bates kind of, which I really, that was basically what it was like, the Norman Bates, with the mother and, so.
Oh, yeah, and we had to wait like halfway through the episode before we even realized
what he was doing.
What is it? Yeah, and I still didn't make the connection like the mother was in on it until
Oh,
he
you
showed up
didn't?
not till he showed up at Abusers Anonymous.
Oh, see, and as soon as they showed the mother, I was like, oh, I know where they're going. That's when I was like Norman Bates, because.
Maybe because that's, you got the female thing, and you got
Yeah.
the creepy guy vibe.
That's exactly what happened.
I just looked at him and go, oh, another college kid, Except he's a
Maybe.
nurse and he's in his late 40s and lives in mommy's basement. There's nothing weird about that.
No, nothing weird about that at all.
Mother,
Exactly.
at least we didn't have to see her in the shower. I think I would have lost my lunch.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
It was bad
no.
enough that she was handicapped in a wheelchair, and he was torturing her by making her watch.
I know. I felt like, this was like trying to teach us like some moral lesson or something, but it was just a little sad,
Yeah.
So what did you think about kind of how they laid out the case?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about the mole.
Ooh, back to the leak.
Because at the beginning of the episode, they were doing the interrogations, and it was Harold, who's the director, who comes to is it Agent Muir, tells
Uh-huh.
she's been cleared. And there was a weird little incident when I was watching, I was watching her, and it seemed like there's something about her, that why was she cleared so soon? And then she did a little bit of a fib about Liz with holding back information about
Well,
Red. And I don't know
that was really true. I mean,
I mean,
she had walked in on the conversation, so that
yes,
wasn't.
but she made it seem a little bit more than it was, I
I don't.
think.
Even though that she's totally a part of the team, she's totally proved
Yeah.
herself. There's still that kind of Disney like Pat theme that. Well,
Something
because
is
Red likes her,
Yes.
she's got to be bad in some way.
Yeah. Well, maybe she was the one that, because the other agent was cleared for the computer information, maybe, and so it wasn't a professional that did it. So I don't know, maybe she did. Maybe
Yeah,
she was the one.
I looked
She's
at
good with
that
computers,
myself.
so.
She came in as a field agent, kind of on the outside, kind of outside the system anyway, but it did seem like the male agent, I forget his name. Garrett. It's like, okay, what connection does he have other than the fact that
he was chasing Red for 5 years?
How does that put him on Red's team? I don't know. It was it was a little awkward.
Well, and Red knows a lot about Garrett because Garrett was chasing him. So Red knew a lot of information about him. Knew about his girlfriend Audrey. Is that what it was? Their relationship. I don't know. Maybe he thinks he can trust Garrett to kind of back Lizzie up. I mean, maybe there's going to be something like that.
Maybe,
I haven't really seen anything. I haven't really seen any chemistry between Garrett and Liz. Most of the chemistry is between Liz and Red.
Well, they seem to after the shooting incident where he took it in the leg, he did spend a majority of this episode with her. So they may be kind of bringing Garrett kind of into the fold a little bit, but it seemed just like they're setting something up.
Yeah,
It was a little
I feel that too.
obvious.
I feel like there's definitely something that's gonna happen between. It's either gonna bond them, or we're gonna figure out that he's not who we think he is, or something.
And I found it interesting towards the end of the episode, Red gets the computer expert and
yes.
to do one of those transactions to find out he did it a totally different way. He couldn't have been the mole, but it kind of sends him on that path. However, that computer guy wasn't even in on the interrogation. So I thought that was kind of sloppy.
Well, except that Red is always a step ahead. He, when he wants information, he's just going to go out and get it any way he can. And he needed to know who did the transaction. So that was his way of, kind of getting information before anyone else. Plus the whole funny thing about that whole scene was him, reassembling his weapon while he's hurrying on his computer. And there was a little funny where it looked like it should have been less time. They were kind of trying to drag it out.
Right.
So that was a little funny to watch, but I mean, it was definitely, it was pretty good entertainment.
It was. I think I was sweating a little bit at the end of that.
Well, because that if he wasn't going to do it, Red was pretty much just going to shoot him. So.
Oh yeah, bullet was loaded, ready to go, and
yeah, now he's got a souvenir.
So yeah, I mean, Red is pissed. I mean, he's out for blood. He wants answers now. He's not messing around, and the funny thing after all this, and I'm probably jumping way ahead, but we find a little bit of the leak, but at the very end, we find out we're right where we started. There's somebody still leaking information.
Yes.
And both the mysterious superpower behind our Ellen Alda's character.
Yeah, because he said he was going to go to the Senate. He didn't want to go to the Senate committee, or he wanted to go to the Senate committee with the mole. Wanted to know who the mole was.
Yeah, that's the first time so wait a minute. He's the underworld boss that orchestrated.
I like how it's a little bit X-Files themed, We got a little bit of conspiracy going on. We got a little roundtable action with some high-powered officials.
Yeah, it's like, where did that come from? He's a senator?
Yeah.
He's like plugged into this high-powered super mob that can pick up Red at any time they want.
Yeah.
And we find out out that Red's got
Well, and he's
something
got,
on him.
well, yeah, he's got a big secret he doesn't want anybody to know about.
And he's pushing.
And Red seemed, well, what I thought was interesting was when Alan Alda had Red, and he was asking him, if he told anybody or anything, and Red kind of made that face. This isn't about you. That was a little interesting interaction.
Apparently there's a lot more at stake than just a few players. There's some high level action going on here that we're gonna have to find out it eventually.
Yes.
Yeah. In the end, we still need to find out that mole. I just thought it was interesting that Alan Alda was still pushing the director of this Black Ops for more information when he's got it.
What do you think he does?
Oh,
do you think Alan Alda has the mole information?
Well, he may be in control of the mole, or even if he isn't, he may be trying to find out what the Black Ops knows, because the moment that he hears that they have the information that he doesn't want them to have, they're going to kill Red, whether Red has anything on them or not. That's
Red has to keep his secrets pretty close, because as soon as all the secrets are out, then he's gone.
Right. The high-level players are not going to put up with their information getting out, and I think he was trying to push her to find out what they know. Either that or the mole presents a similar problem for them too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So let's get back to the unsub. So
okay.
we find out he's targeting abusers because he's an abused victim himself. The little mommy dearest going on.
Yeah. Yeah, Norman Bates. My mom abused me, so I'm going to teach everyone a lesson.
And so that was pretty brutal. And, at first you didn't really figure out what the pattern was. And then, they start digging and say, hey, the people in the deceased's family
had same injuries.
Same injuries. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, he's replicating the abuse.
That was pretty brutal.
That was.
I mean, but when it comes to kids being, hurt by their parents, that kind of have a little bit of retribution, do they deserve it? Do I feel like they do? Yeah. I don't know. Is that kosher? I don't know.
It was kind of like the last scene where Liz is standing over the wife beater.
Oh, yeah. Telling him she's going to hunt him down. That was excellent.
I will finish the job.
Yeah, I will come find you. And the look on, his wife's face, big doe eyes as she's saying it. She, Liz is an advocate for her. That was good. I like that.
Yeah, that was cool. In the meantime, he finds Red finds the banker and finds the money source. That was an intense scene.
That was amazing. That was probably one of my favorite scenes. There were two instances. He met with him first, which I thought was weird that he let him go because he'd been eliminating everyone. So I was like, okay, there's going to be something bigger's coming. And he comes to his, the guy comes home, his wife's cooking dinner, Red comes out, going to stay for dinner, and then it all starts happening. It was, his interaction with Janice was fabulous,
I'll have to take a rain check on that beef stroganoff, but it sounds marvelous.
Put you in the closet if you don't stop yammering. That was really good. I like that.
So he leaves him, he shoots him, but he leaves him alive because he must be a good money source. But, for this guy to be so smart, to me, you knew Red was going to be back. He gave him a name, which turned out to be the Patsy Mole.
Yes.
And that's just the wrong thing to do with Red.
Yeah.
You can't be so stupid as to think, oh, he's going to take care of the mole that we planted, which was our agent, Louis Coogan.
Right.
And oops, no. Oh, well, he won't figure it out.
He figures everything out.
Don't play with Red. That's the moral of that story.
Yeah. Don't mess with the best.
So we find out it's Newton Phillips.
That scene was a little interesting.
It was. Newton Phillips has been his right-hand man the entire time.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute, the butler did it?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Well, that scene, that was one of the last scenes, and, it was kind of like a Godfather scene. That's kind of what it reminded me of.
of course, it reminded me of, remember that surveillance team, they tied it back to Newton and that he may have been behind the setup. And that's why we assumed it was Red.
Yeah.
Because he's the one that set that up. Now we know somebody got Newton to set this up, and they were threatening his family. Of course, Red could have done something, and the fact that he didn't go to him first.
Well, I was probably just trying to, be sure you don't have someone in your organization that's close to you. You want to, I don't know, maybe he was trying to figure out if it was really him. I mean, it seemed like he had a hard time with the assassination that he did, but the whole scene was like they're out, tree and Red that with the ashes in the water. I'm not sure what he cutting up, and talking to him about his family and and he did it from behind. Most of the other ones were face to face, but he came up from behind and put a bag over his head.
Yeah, I guess that was the gentle approach. This way he didn't have any entry or exit wounds. It was just an asphyxiation. Just I think it was a way of, look, you've got to pay the ultimate price, but since you've been my right-hand man, I guess it felt like he was doing him some sort of
service.
Some weird favor.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm going to do you this way because, you've been my boy. And
yeah, that's kind of how it felt.
So it left the option that this guy could kind of wind up in a boating accident somewhere, even though he never owned a boat.
Yeah, like maybe he was too. No, who was it? Who were ashes? Because we saw who was in the box that he said something, someone had died and he wanted to make sure everything was taken care of and they cremated him. And so, I mean, who was that exactly?
I think the ashes were his Oriental assistant.
Okay.
I just had the feeling that after that he was carrying her ashes because they kept doing the flashback. Because I think the guy his bodyguard made it through that, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, so to me, that she was the only one that could have been. I don't think he was. We saw flashbacks of the EMT and everybody else, and they just kind of wound up in alleys and weird places.
The other one that, Mr. Kaplan is fabulous. That's who Lizzie called to come to the apartment after she shot, across the street from her house when she shot that guy. She called Mr. Kaplan, helped her look for Red, and they were looking for him, and she's pretty fabulous. She's a go-to girl.
Oh yeah, that was great. It kind of reminded me of
getting stuff done. And
remember, did you watch Breaking Bad at all?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, Michael was the cleanup man.
Yeah.
And kind of take it, very much like that. Was that the little from the was it the Invincibles, the little cartoon family where they're all
the
Incredibles? The Incredibles.
Don't ask how I know that.
Yeah, I've seen it too. Be proud. We're not starting a podcast on that either. We can tell Rob just to chill out on that one. Although if we have any listeners that are pining for it, maybe we will submit. But yeah, Mr. Kaplan.
What was
the wardrobe lady?
Yeah, the wardrobe lady. Oh.
So we've got Alan Alda grilling the Black Ops chairwoman, and who's they? They're
the conspiracy.
Right. Not only do we have pressure from the Senate, but, this is like the second hint of this kind of organization in the background. Obviously, we're going to see more of them.
Yes. And I'm looking forward to that because though I hope they do it kind of X-Files style where they don't, there's not too much, but you just get little bits and pieces of it here and there. It makes it more interesting to figure it out, like what's really going on. That's why I like the show. There's so many things going on. It keeps me interested. Most of the shows that I watch are like that. The Killing and X-Files and The Blacklist. So that makes it good TV.
It does. And I hope I agree with you. I hope they kind of leave it as something in the background because, I'm there to watch The Blacklist and kind of go down the list and the occasional, Red's got somebody to answer to now and then.
Yeah.
He's not this completely out of control guy. He's part of the plan and he can only go so far.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, because, he was talking about, about his past a little bit. It'd be interesting to find out a little bit more about him. If we'll get little snippets of that over time, or how he came to be who he is.
I think have we gotten to the end of the show here?
I think so.
I think for all intents and purposes, I think Red is back.
Oh
instead of
yeah, that little conversation where he shows up at her house, that was really good. Let's talk about that just for a few minutes. That was him sitting on her couch. She comes in, they have a little conversation, what did you bring me type
Yeah.
daddy-daughter interaction. And then he says, I brought you the next person on the list.
Is there any question? I've seen some internet chatter. There's still some questions whether or not they're going to do like a double blind and maybe she's not his daughter.
Well,
I don't see any other motivation, though.
Well, he told her he wasn't, but do we believe him?
He had the whole discussion with the adopted father, so we know that Lizzie is his daughter, or at least it seemed pretty clear.
We think that. We don't know for sure, but that's what I'm thinking is that, she's his daughter. The whole incident with her hand being burned and scarred with the bunny, they keep going back to that and they flash back to it in her bedroom with the fire in the background.
I wonder if that was maybe an assassination attempt on Red's family, and that's where Red has to decide, I either have to stay in this line of business.
Well, he was supposed to come home to his family on Christmas Eve, and he never showed up. He disappeared.
We still have yet to find out about that, but I think the reason that he gave up that family must have something to do with that fire.
Well, because he wants to protect her. If she's his daughter, then, and he knows what's going on, he doesn't want her to be in harm's way.
The only way he can do what he does is to remain unattached. Otherwise, anybody can come for a family member.
Right. He has to play like he has no family. Like there is no one.
So I guess that takes us to a neat little tidy ending. They've kind of transitioned us into next week.
Next week's going to be good.
Hopefully we'll all be caught up. We'll have our Twitter feed going by then. In the meantime, my Twitter feed is at Jack Wengroski.
And my Twitter feed is at MSMaxi.
And do you have now you're also a host of the Killing podcast, correct?
I'm not a host of the Killing podcast, but I do have a partner in crime, and we have a website and run a Twitter account for The Killing, at The Killing on AMC.
All right, check that out. And about time to wrap this up here. This was the SMG Blacklist podcast, which is brought to you by the Southgate Media Group. Check out our webpage at southgatemediagroup.com and check out our sponsor, which is Tweaked Audio. If you go to their site, tweakedaudio.com, use the code Southgate, and that helps us out. There's some great headphones that you can take advantage of, or check out our PayPal link. I've been your host, Jack Wengroski.
I'm Melissa Maxey.
And we look forward to seeing you on the next part of the list.
See you then.